Well, my colleague Sreeja has been reporting on the ground from Colombo and sent us a series of reports on the dramatic protests that we have seen today, which saw protesters storming the Prime Minister's office, taking over the national broadcaster, taking over the PM's office, being tear-gassed and really dealt with very firmly by the police in the process. But this is, as we've been saying, very much a people's revolt in Sri Lanka. And these are the voices that Sreeja has found for us.
The protesters are now running toward Ranil Wickremesinghe's residence. In fact, this exactly was how we understand several of the protesters had managed to breach the heavily guarded presidential palace and the heavily guarded temple trees as well. But now what you witnessed on your screens is the protesters have breached the security at the moment. They have pushed the security forces. They are trying to enter Ranil's private residence. Water cannons have been brought to the location to ensure they can, force the protesters out of this very location. You can see thousands and thousands of protesters are now running toward Ranil Wickremesinghe's private burnt residence. What you see just ahead of me is the tear gas that's being shelled. Several protesters, in fact, questioning the fact how the government, or the military for that matter, allowed Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa to flee the country when they are the only and the sole reasons why they are out in the streets today. The crowd is swelling, and in fact this is the very crowd that we witnessed and saw that they were walking from the golf face, the Colombo, the epicenter of the anti-government protests. That's the exact place where we witnessed the Sri Lankan uprising on July 9th. Now they have managed to walk over 8 kilometers from Golf Face Green to this particular location. The crowd is swelling. In fact, these are frustrated anti-government protesters who for over 95 days they've been out in the streets, where the particular empty site, which is a ground which was dedicated by the government called the demonstration site, where the government was converted into Gota, which is today a village created by the citizens of Sri Lanka, which they dedicated that entire place to Sri Lankan citizens to ensure all those who want to voice against the government can come, stay there, build a tent and voice against the government. So this is the cheering moment right now at the moment right now for those citizens. They're cheering the fact that they've managed to breach the security. You have the Air Force on ground, you have the police, you have several companies of the Special Task Force who are all in fact deployed at this point in time to ensure that there's no untoward incidents. But we see it's a similar situation that we witnessed on the 9th of July as well. Citizens managed to breach the security. They've gone way past all the barricades that have been placed by the police at the moment. We're walking along with the protesters. Now they've crossed this main junction. Now to your right, what you see just in the front ahead of me is Ranil Wickremesinghe's residence that was burnt down by the protesters on the 9th of July. In fact, all this while, there were several talks and rumors about where exactly is Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa is. But today, there is a clarity. All this while, since the 9th onward, after he fled from his residence, the presidential palace, he escaped, leaving his citizens out on the streets. There were no confirmation whatsoever until early this morning. And then we receive a confirmation from the Air Force saying that it was they themselves who had helped Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa escape from the country, escape from Sri Lanka. He's landed in Maldives. He's been received in Maldives at the moment. But what we witness back home here in Sri Lanka is people are relentlessly protesting they say they will not stop until Gotabaya resigns and Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe resigns. So we've walked right now from the point where they breached the security for over a kilometer now, along with the protesters. They're slowly marching toward. In fact, on to my right is the burnt house, what you're witnessing. What's more important to note here is Mr. Rajapaksa enjoys the immunity from arrest. That's one of the reasons why we understand. The defense confirmed to NDTV, Air Force says that they were obligated to give Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa the plane so that he could land in Maldives. Mr. Gotabaya has left along with his wife and 2 other bodyguards as well, security. And he has successfully managed to flee from the country, leaving tens and thousands of people out here on the streets. In fact, you know, the people have all gathered here. When we spoke to the protesters here, they say they're going to lay siege to the parliament because
Prime Minister because he decided to become president. We don't like him. We telling Gota and Ranil go home, should go home.
okay.
This is not our way. Because if we need to Ranil, why we protest about 3 months?
How long will you all continue with the protest?
Until Gota and Ranil leave.
Now the protesters have sat right here.
Gota! Go home! Gota! Go home! Gota! Go home! Gota! Go home!
Well, they have walked towards this particular location, which is almost close by to Ranil Wickremesinghe's burnt residence, the private residence. And now they're walking back. They will be walking toward Parliament. Now, that was the original plan of these protesters. We will give you time till about 11:59 p.m. And if we do not hear any information or news about Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has resigned as the president of Sri Lanka, we will be laying siege to the Parliament. So this, what you see, the protesters claiming it their victory because they have managed to try and oust Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa out of his palace, presidential palace, but yet he has not resigned from his position. So as per their original plan, they say they will be laying siege to the parliament. Now remember, now these are the very people who have given Mr. Rajapaksa as well as Ranil Wickremesinghe also in terms of where they have also in terms where, you know, they have conquered temple trees, they've conquered the presidential palace, and now they say because they haven't heard the news in terms of whether Gotabaya Rajapaksa has resigned or not, they will be now laying siege to the parliament. So these are angry protesters. You know, the anger has spilled onto the streets. What you see is especially the protesters saying that they have claimed victory to all these days, these many days of protest, that they have brought them to streets for over 95 days, that they've been sitting out and protesting on the streets. The protesters have all gathered here to decide on the fact that what is their next plan of action. But what we do know at the moment is they will be planning to lay siege to the parliament. If I could go across to a protester here.
Sorry?
What is the plan of action next? Are you all laying siege to the parliament?
So we are planning to go to Parliament so that this, you know, our Prime Minister, if the President resign as our plan, the next President will be our Prime Minister. So that we don't want that one. Talk together and select one guy for the President. That's what we need.
Okay, what is the plan of actions? We see that all the protesters have gathered here.
We are doing this friendly walk to the Parliament so that police start to fire the tear gas, so that we all together come together and start to support our all the people united here.
that there are several protesters who are yet to plan in terms of what they're going to do next. But what they do know at the moment is they say that they have news. They've learnt of the fact that once Gotabaya Rajapaksa resigns, Mr. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe will take over as the president. That's the information these protesters have learned. There's massive tear gas shelling going on right outside Ranil Wickremesinghe's office on Flower Road here in Colombo in Sri Lanka, and the public, the common man, they're running helter-skelter for a cover. You see, Ranil Wickremesinghe has managed to get security forces. In fact, it's been a very, very difficult situation, even for us, where we are on an assignment out here covering the Sri Lankan uprising, where after realizing and learning of the incident that Ranil Wickremesinghe is the acting president, we have onto my right, you see, several people have been injured in the tear gas incident. They're choking. People are helping each other. Now those are the scenes that we're witnessing at the moment, and yet the citizens are relentless. They are running once again. They're running once again toward the security forces. They're running toward Ranil Wickremesinghe's residence. Now this is what we are witnessing on ground outside Ranil Wickremesinghe's office. In fact, people are not moving. In fact, crowd is only swelling despite the tear gas shelling, despite water cannons being sprayed, despite, in fact, shooting in the air, firing in the air. Despite that, we see several people have been tear gassed with, and these army has been brought in. They have formed a human chain. In fact, people are not going anywhere. People say that they will remain here strong. They'll stay put. They will ensure that, according to them, they will lay siege inside this Ranil's office. And once they do so, and because they always wanted Ranil also to leave the post, leave his position. But now, when he had already offered, to step down as a Prime Minister, he's already taken over as the acting president, which even as the Sri Lankan citizens don't want it. You have the special task force lined up. More number of force is being pumped right now. This is the anger. You can also see a citizen, in fact, a citizen is asking a special task force police officers if they have been injured in this incident, because that's the kind of humanity you're witnessing here on ground. Where, the security forces themselves have been going all out, resorting to tear gas, water cannons, and also, in fact, firing in the air. They've been resorting to all sort of tactics in the book to ensure that they can disperse the crowd outside Ranil Wickremesinghe's residence. Now, we also did see how one particular citizen was actually trying to help even a special task officer, that if he has been injured in the tear gas incident. Now, that is the kind of humanity you're witnessing on ground amongst the Sri Lankan citizens. They've all come together. The unison, you can see, that's something one cannot, of course, ignore. It's definitely what you witness here is a standoff. It's a face-off between the citizens. It's a face-off between the army, the special task force, and also including the Air Force. And it's been over 2 to 3 hours now. Tear gas shelling has been going on. There's no stop to it at the moment. People have sensed that Ranil is already inside and that they want to break open the gates. And that's what you're witnessing right on there. If I could ask my camera person to pan and show you a larger view. In fact, we're going through the security forces to show you more and bring you more visuals. And In fact, several of the media persons, several of them, the local media journalists, international media journalists covering the Sri Lankan uprising, several of them have been injured in this incident. They are also amongst the protesters where they're covering, while the protesters on the other hand demanding that Ranil must go home. The protesters are not going to leave this place. They will continue because there's a huge, large crowd that's gathered there. This is the long shot that we're showing you. There's a long shot that we're bringing to you. This on to my left is the Ranil's entrance, the main entrance. They have all gathered. They're trying to push and break open the gates. And of course the security forces have really, the numbers have come down, who were the strong forces who were standing where they had formed a human chain, those numbers have come down. And you have people in fact shouting slogans in support of the Sri Lankans themselves, calling for victory. They are calling for Ranil's resignation. They're calling for Gotabaya's resignation. They will not move out of this location until they hear that Ranil is not going to rule Sri Lanka anymore. Outside Ranil's residence in Flower Road in Colombo, with camera person Kumar, Sreeja for NDTV.